My parents locked me outside in a blizzard to teach me respect. 20 years later, they begged me for help. I'm Alina Harper. I'm 34 years old. I own a private medical transport company in Minneapolis. And last Tuesday, while I was reviewing payroll in my office with reheated coffee going cold beside my laptop, I got a call from a hospital in northern Wisconsin asking if I was the emergency contact for Margaret Harper, my mother. I had not heard that woman's name spoken aloud in almost 19 years. For a moment, I genuinely thought someone had made a mistake. Then the nurse calmly explained that my mother had listed me as next of kin after being admitted for heart failure. I stared at the wall so long the nurse had to repeat herself. Because the truth is, some people can spend decades pretending you never existed and still expect to be treated like family the second they need something. The nurse asked if I would be coming, and just like that, I was 16 again, barefoot, shaking, standing in the snow while my father turned the deadbolt, and my mother said maybe a few hours in the cold would finally teach me some respect. Growing up in Ashford, Wisconsin, meant growing up inside a performance. To everyone outside our house, we were the kind of family people admired. My father was a church deacon who shook hands like he was running for office. My mother volunteered at school bake sales and taught Sunday school. My younger brother Tyler played hockey, had a bright smile, and knew exactly when to act charming. We had matching holiday cards, matching smiles in public, matching lies. Inside our house, everything ran on hierarchy, and I was at the bottom. I was the difficult daughter. That was the title my family gave me before I was old enough to understand what it meant. Not because I was rebellious, not because I got into trouble, but because every dysfunctional family chooses one person to absorb the blame so everyone else can pretend the system works. Tyler was the golden child. Funny, athletic, naturally likable. If Tyler forgot homework, my mother laughed and called him absent-minded. If I forgot homework, she said I lacked discipline. If Tyler got in trouble at school, it meant the teacher had unfairly targeted him. If I got in trouble, it proved I had an attitude problem. He broke rules. I broke expectations. And in my family, those were treated very differently. My mother had a favorite phrase: perception matters. She said it constantly when I cried in public, when I disagreed with her in front of relatives, when I wore clothes she thought looked sloppy, when I reacted to things she said. Perception mattered more to her than truth, more than fairness, more than reality itself. My father was quieter, but in some ways worse. He rarely initiated punishment. He simply enforced it. He was the smiling accomplice, the man who stood beside cruelty and made it feel official. He could watch my mother tear me apart emotionally and nod like she was teaching life skills. Then afterward, he would clap my shoulder and tell me one day I would thank them for making me strong. I used to wonder if he believed that. Now I think he just liked never being the worst person in the room. The punishments were always framed as lessons. That was their word, lessons. When I was 10, I forgot to bring home a permission slip for a school field trip. My mother made me stand in the front yard holding a handwritten sign that said, "I waste everyone's time by being irresponsible." She said humiliation creates memory, that if I felt embarrassed enough, I would never forget again. When I was 12, I accidentally shrank one of Tyler's hockey jerseys in the wash. My father took every piece of clothing out of my closet except 3 outfits and said if I could not care for other people's belongings, I did not deserve extras. That lasted a month. When I was 14, I got grounded for lying after pointing out Tyler had stolen $20 from my mother's purse. He had. She found it in his backpack later. She never apologized. She just said I should not have accused him so harshly. That was life in my house. Reality changed depending on who had done the harm. By 16, I had stopped expecting fairness. But I had started fighting back, not loudly, not dramatically, just enough to show I no longer believed every cruel thing they said about me. That terrified my mother, because control only works while the person under it accepts your version of reality. And I was starting not to. The breaking point came because Tyler crashed my car. I had spent a year saving for that used Honda, waitressing after school, weekend shifts, babysitting neighbors' kids. Every dollar I earned went toward that car because I wanted one thing in my life that was mine. One Saturday while I was working a double shift, Tyler stole my keys. He was 15, unlicensed, and stupid enough to think he could joyride around town. He wrapped my car around a mailbox less than 10 blocks from the house. When I got home and saw the front bumper hanging loose, I thought for one irrational second someone had hit it while it was parked. Then Tyler smirked from the couch and said, "Relax. It still drives." I lost it. I screamed, asked if he had lost his mind, asked how he planned to pay for repairs. My mother stormed in from the kitchen like I was the one causing chaos. My father followed, and somehow within 5 minutes the conversation had become about my tone, my attitude, my disrespect. My mother said if I had not lorded the car over Tyler constantly, he would not have felt tempted. My father said siblings should share. I asked if either of them heard themselves. Tyler laughed, actually laughed, and said maybe if I was less selfish, people would like me more. Something in me snapped. I slapped him hard. The room went silent. Tyler stared at me in shock, and I knew instantly, no matter what he had done, I had just handed my parents the excuse they had been waiting for. That night, the temperature dropped below 10 degrees. Snow was piling in drifts against the porch. The whole town looked buried in white. Around 9 p.m., my father ordered me downstairs. My mother stood by the front door with my coat in her hands. Her face was calm, too calm. That was always how I knew something bad was coming. She said, "If you cannot behave like part of this family, then maybe you need time alone to think about whether you deserve to be in one." I laughed because I thought it had to be a bluff. Then my father opened the door. Cold air hit my face, and he said, "Outside, now." I froze. My mother tossed me my coat. No boots, no gloves, no hat, just the coat. I said they could not be serious. My father grabbed my arm, dragged me onto the porch, and shut the door behind me. The deadbolt clicked. At first I banged, then I begged, then I screamed apologies I did not mean because survival teaches you strange reflexes. I said I was sorry. I said I would never do it again. I said please. Through the front window. Tyler stood in the living room watching, eating popcorn, smiling. Then my father closed the curtains. The cold was immediate and brutal. It seeped through my socks within minutes. My fingers burned. My face stung. I pounded until my hands hurt too badly to keep trying. Then I ran to the detached shed because it blocked some of the wind. Inside it smelled like gasoline and wet dirt. I curled up between gardening tools and fertilizer bags and tried to make myself small. Time became strange out there. My body shook so hard my teeth clattered. Then eventually it stopped shaking, which was somehow scarier, because I knew enough to know that meant something was wrong. I do not remember collapsing. What I remember next is someone yelling, a flashlight beam, a woman's voice saying, "Oh my God." Our neighbor, Mrs. Jensen, had found me at dawn while walking her dog. She called 911. The paramedics loaded me into an ambulance wrapped in heated blankets. The police arrived at my house before my parents had even gotten dressed. Their story was immediate and polished. They claimed I had stormed out after an argument, claimed they thought I was staying with a friend, claimed I was lying because I did not want consequences. But frostbite does not care about lies. Neither do medical reports. Neither does a neighbor who testifies she found a barefoot teenager nearly unconscious in a shed during sub-zero weather. The investigation took months. Child Protective Services, interviews, school counselors, medical evaluations, psychological assessments. And for the first time in my life, adults listened. Really listened, not because I cried dramatically, not because I had proof of every single past cruelty, but because once one horrific act is undeniable, people start asking what else happened before it. And once they started asking, everything came pouring out. I never returned home. My Aunt Rebecca in Minneapolis took me in. She was my father's older sister. The family disappointment, divorced, opinionated, did not attend church regularly, drank wine from stemless glasses and said hell in front of children, which in retrospect meant she was the only sane person in the bloodline. She gave me her guest room, put flannel sheets on the bed, bought me boots the next day. And when I flinched because she knocked before entering my room, she looked confused and said, "Well, yes, it's your room." I almost cried right there, because nobody had ever acted like my boundaries mattered before. Recovery was not magical. It was ugly, messy, slow. I distrusted kindness, panicked when plans changed. Could not sleep during storms because wind against windows reminded me of that night. If someone closed a door too hard, my whole body tensed. Therapy helped, so did distance. So did finally hearing professionals use words like abuse, scapegoating, emotional neglect, trauma. Words that told me my childhood had not been normal. Words that told me pain was not proof I was weak. It was proof something had happened to me. I worked constantly, partly because I needed money, partly because staying busy kept my mind from spiraling. Scholarships got me through college. I studied business administration, worked nights driving non-emergency medical transport, learned dispatch systems, insurance billing, fleet maintenance, scheduling, every ugly logistical detail nobody notices until it goes wrong. By 27, I bought my first used van, started my own company. One vehicle became three, three became seven, seven became a fleet. By 34, I had contracts with hospitals across Minnesota, 40 employees, a house, a husband, 2 daughters, a life no one in Ashford would have predicted for the girl they whispered about after the incident. And then came the call, my mother in heart failure, my father with Parkinson's. Tyler estranged after years of addiction, arrests, and financial destruction. The golden child had burned every bridge they built for him. And now, after all those years, they needed me. I drove to Wisconsin the next morning. Not because I forgave them, not because they deserved closure, because I needed to see who they had become, needed to know whether time had changed anything. The hospital room was dim. My mother looked smaller than I remembered, fragile, gray. My father's hands trembled visibly. For one dangerous second, I almost felt sorry for them. Then my mother said, "Alina, sweetheart," and I remembered everything. Sweetheart was never what she called me when she had power. She cried immediately. My father did too. They said they had made mistakes. Said parenting had been hard. Said they had not understood how badly they hurt me. Said losing Tyler had made them realize how much family matters. Interesting how people discover the value of family only after their favorites fail them. I listened, quietly, for almost 10 minutes. Then I asked one question. "Do you remember what you said when you locked me outside?" Silence. My mother stared at the blanket. My father looked away. I repeated it for them. "You said maybe the cold would teach me respect." My voice never rose. That was the strangest part. I had imagined this confrontation for years as something furious. Instead, I felt calm, clear, precise. I said, "You did not make mistakes. You abused me. You nearly killed me because I embarrassed you. And when people found out, you lied to save yourselves. You taught me exactly what kind of people you were. Believe me when I say I learned the lesson." My mother sobbed, asked if people cannot change. I said maybe they can, but changed people apologize before they need something. Changed people do not wait until they are desperate. Changed people do not find the daughter they discarded only after everyone else is gone. Then came the real ask. Money, medical bills, help with housing, care coordination, rides, management. They wanted support, not reconciliation. Support. Practical, financial, emotional labor from the daughter they once left half frozen in a shed. I stood. My father asked if I would really leave them like this. And I said, "You left a 16-year-old barefoot in a blizzard because she slapped the son you never held accountable. You taught me family can leave you in the cold when you need them most." I learned that lesson very well. Then I walked out. They were placed in state-assisted housing 2 months later. Alive, sheltered, fed, cared for, just not by me. And some people hear that and think the story should end with forgiveness. That healing requires reconciliation. That survival is supposed to make you merciful. I disagree. Healing is not pretending the wound never happened. Healing is understanding you do not owe access to the people who created it. My daughters will never know what it feels like to beg for love from someone determined not to give it. They will never wonder whether mistakes make them unworthy. They will never stand outside a locked door and call it discipline. Because pain does not become wisdom just because a parent wraps it in moral language. Cruelty does not become love because it comes from family. And surviving abuse does not obligate you to offer comfort to the people who caused it. Sometimes people ask whether I hate my parents. No, hate requires energy. I spent too many years surviving them to waste more years hating them. What I feel is simpler than that. Finality. They were the beginning of my story, not the ending. And if there is one thing I know now, it is this. The night they locked me outside in the snow, they thought they were teaching me I needed them to survive. What they really taught me was how to build a life so strong, so warm, and so full of love that I would never need them again. And that was the lesson that broke them in the end. If this story moved you, don't forget to subscribe to the channel Her Breaking Point. And drop a comment below. I'd love to know which city or state you're listening from.